Hi team, this is George. I hope you're well on your way to your project. If you're having a little bit of a tough time with the statistics piece, don't worry about it. That's kind of normal. It's part of the process, and you can't really go through it until you struggle a little bit with it, and then you go ahead and figure out what you need to do. So, if you are having a little bit of time, we're going to go through this piece a little bit more in depth than the video that I did show you before. I'm going to utilize that video to help us figure this thing out. So let's jump into it. So first off, we know we have to write a one-page paper. Now when I say one page, that's anywhere from 3/4 to one, works for a full page. The method, so I kind of set up a mock paper, and this is exactly how I would set it up. You got this from the rubric as well within the syllabus. I would call it analysis. I would say the data, the testing, and then data cleaning and outliers. So in other words, the data, what type of data do you have? You're testing, what test are you going to kind of prove from it? And I'm sorry, I'm the data. What are you expecting to learn from the data? Not drawing any conclusions, but let's say you're doing either gum chewing or let's go with the color paper and cognitive tasks, or gum chewing cognitive tasks. You're looking to see if there is a difference. So it's basically your research question. So you always start these out with something to the point of this research, and wordsmith it better than I'm going to do. I'm just kind of coming up with this off the top of my head. This research is meant to study the effects of gum chewing and cognitive tasks, or whatever you're doing. Thank goodness for spell check automatic and cognitive tasks. So you have that, and you could expand it a little bit. You could put your flair onto this. The expected results are, and then you can put that in there in that sentence. Don't worry about my typing, it's pretty poor, or, and then you just add to that, and then the next paragraph you would say the data was gathered from what type of sample. Many of us used a convenience sample, and then say why you use the convenience sample for purposes of accessibility or whatever it may be. Usually that is the answer data was gathered from convenience sample for the purpose of accessibility, and then the data gathered was it nominal, interval, or ratio? What type of data was it? So that's where we're going to jump over here and take a look at our friend's video. Choosing the test, was it this would be your nominal data here if you were testing for proportions. So what are we testing? So let's look at the color of the paper and the gum chewing. So if I'm looking at the color of paper, it all has to do with how I set up my study. So if I'm testing one group that does paper blue paper, one group that does green paper, then I have two samples that I'm comparing, and I'm going to probably be comparing their score. So I am going to be over here in this data, right over here, because this is my interval data here. This would be yes or no, this kind of stuff. So if I'm just doing a head-to-head comparison, then I can be here, but I'm going to be testing my test score here versus my test score here. Now, if I'm doing the same person, I have a single that's called a single subject or single mean, and I'm going to be testing the difference between the mean. So I'm going to do a test for mean when I compare those two. I'm going to difference of two means. So I have one person, and I'm comparing their mean, their score. So let's say I do 50 people, and I have them do both tests. Then I'm going to be down here, in my difference of two means paired or regression analysis. You can pick either one. So with that being said, I go in and I put here, so the data gathered was testing the difference between scores, and then write it better than this. I'm just doing this because it's a quick video. So the mean difference, the mean difference, so MEAN, mean difference between scores for, and then just put in your test. So whatever test you did there, you would put that in. And then as we look, so we said we're going to use, we'll decide on, since we have a decision of a couple, let's say we're going to do the difference of two means paired. Okay. The participants completed a test on green paper, so I'd say more eloquently than this, and blue paper. So you're just painting the picture of what they've done. Green paper and blue paper. Okay, that's fantastic. So they did a test, look, green paper, blue paper, and the means of the scores were then compared. And how are we comparing them? We're going to compare them by mean of the difference, by the difference of two means, by the difference of two means. Now here's the magic. Since we don't have to do the actual statistics, we're just putting this paper together, and the method used is and then I am going to go over to my PhD friend Dr. Google and difference of two means. So, two proportions. So I was looking up a different one, getting ready for the video here. Two means. Okay, hypothesis test. So testing differences between means. Hypothesis test, difference between means. Comparison of two means. Guess what? Click any of those and it will tell you test. This one just kind of gives us a bunch of fluff. Here it's going to tell us exactly what the test can be. Okay, difference between two means, independent groups, learning objectives, and then let's get down to the actual test. And this is how they write for that. There's our distribution, two-tailed. So that they actually did a t-test. There we go. Most computer programs compute t-tests. So you are going to compute a t-test. Right now, we're just worried about the process. We're not worried about going through and actually computing this. So what you need to know is the t-test is what does this. All right, so method used was the t-test, and since that didn't give us much information, we're doing this live and real, so let's just open it up and let's look at t-test. So this is the process that you would go through. If you don't know what a t-test is, you go to t-test. What is a t-test? Analysis to population means through use of statistical examples. Guess what? That is fantastic stuff. So use your references. So t-test, student t-test, GraphPad, t-test, Investopedia. There's all kinds of information about the t-test telling you what it is. Since we're in psychology, it's kind of nice here. T-test for independence means, t-test for independent means, use test sample means. So that's what we're doing. The t-test was used to, difference between means, methods, t-test, test, compares. That's how you start to write it. So this is going to take up a little bit more than half a page. So, and then you can write under testing the t-test data, not bold, you say t-test data. So this is how they come up when you read the articles and stuff, and you see all the statistical things. It's not a big deal as it looks, believe it or not. The t-test data is comparing, and then you would go into a little bit more. So this final sentence where you end up with the t-test compares, then you just go in and quote a resource and tell us what t-test data is, and then data cleaning. This one is fantastic because so that's going to take up 1/2 to 3/4 of a page. So you can actually be done, but we do have to have data cleaning in there. And data cleaning is simple. All data cleaning means is that if you have somebody that didn't finish the test or anything like that, the data was not used. So you state that. Participants did not finish the test, or results from participants, sorry. Results from participants did not finish the test, were not used in the calculations. Can't type. Calculations. If, and then if, oh man, always start with the magic. I went back and looked for writing for, this was one that I did, and here's how it went to scrub stuff out. All this good stuff, it looks like I really know statistics, but it doesn't. I'm following the exact same process that I'm showing you here, and it makes you look really good. So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get to the part where I scrub the data in this thing here. Manipulation check. Well, it's in here. I'm sorry for the delay. Crucial difference comparisons were made. So here's what I was saying. Here's what I actually did for an actual study. Within subject and between subject, pre-post treatment design was utilized with a power sample of 203 participants from the high desert area of Southern California. So if you're doing a gum chewing or the colored paper, that first sentence could be used pretty much for you. I used so a single subject, and then the comparison. So we're just stating exactly what we did here. Data was gathered from testing mean different participants completed. Results did not finish. Sorry, that's not it. The data was gathered from a convenient sample, purposeful and accessible. That is just about the same thing that we did right here. So, and then it just tells the kind of test. That's just walking through that process. This was electronic, and it talks about the data being scrubbed in here somewhere. So let me just look at that real quick. As I told you I would find it, I will. My apologies. Data cleaning. Method within subjects. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, I can't find it right off the top here where I thought I had it. So let's just move on so I do not waste all of your time with the method and then the participants. I thought it was easy to find. My apologies here. One last look. Cases, oh, here we go. Prior to the analysis, data were screened for missing scores and outliers. Missing data were explored using frequencies. Cases with missing data were not included in the analysis. Univariate outliers were evaluated by transforming raw scores to z-scores, comparing the scores, boom, boom, boom. Scores that exceeded critical value, no more than 3 standard deviations. So what does that mean? All that was the z-scores and all that is because of the type of data I was using. I was using numbers. I was testing speed. So that's real easy to come up with that verbiage there. So what it means that from when we're not using data like that, you can come over here and you can say results from did not finish. We're not using the calculations if the responses were more than 2 standard deviations. the scores were not used. So in other words, if we're taking a measurement of the scores on certain tests, you take whether it's on red paper, blue paper, green paper, whatever paper, guess what? Somebody scored 100 and most people scored a 60, you're not going to use that outlier, that 100. So that's all that means. So that's it. That's how you would write the whole entire piece. So if this was probably a fairly long video, so my apologies for that. If anyone needs any help, give me a text message today and we can jump on and have a quick conversation about your specific data. It should take about 10 to 15 minutes. So have a great day.